Okay. So, not exactly what I fully anticipated. But okay. We got it. We're all good here. We're starting the live stream because we can. Um, so, this is not what we're looking at. I was looking at this random severe thunderstorm warning in California. And why are things, this is why I don't have nice things. Alright, well, as usual, I'm never organized. But yeah, I was looking at this random severe thunderstorm warning in California. So that's a thing. But what we're really here for is the title of the stream. And let's just say I may or may not have called something when it comes to the track of a particular tropical storm that's heading towards Louisiana. It does seem... Oh boy. You know, it's really satisfying to get a prediction to look like it's correct, or like it's looking like it's correct, but look like it's going to be correct, I should say. Jeez, I can't speak. But you know, we still got time, and the only issue about this prediction that I made is that it's going to impact more people rather than where it was originally going to hit. So let's talk about Marco Polo. Marco right now just so happens to be a 65 mile per hour maximum sustained storm with 994 millibars as its pressure, moving north-northwest at 13 miles per hour. The track actually takes it so that it hits Louisiana. As I've said, I said when you had the track before, it said it was going to go like over here or somewhere. I said it probably will go this way. Probably. And look at that. Look what it did. I'm not saying I'm a weather wizard. Actually, I am saying I'm a weather wizard. Bow down to me, please. I'm just kidding. But yeah. Weather wizard proclaimed that this tropical system would hit Louisiana, and here we are. So, according to the National Weather Service, or actually not the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, this storm will actually impact Louisiana as a hurricane, which if that's the case, then that's when people should probably start monitoring this as this continues to move on through. But still, definitely one of those things where as it continues to move on, people need to monitor this. Let's talk about what we can expect when it comes to the intensities of Marco. Because right now, the National Hurricane Center are very adamant about this thing becoming a hurricane, as you can see with the black circle here being designated as an H. But let's take a look at the current conditions of Marco and see what we can find here as to what we can expect in the future. So first things first, here's the infrared satellite. You can see these kind of bands swirling in. This one, not as much of a band. You'll see the reason why this isn't as well defined in the northern side of Marco, but these popcorn convection across the board, the area of low pressure, we'd probably be able to see a whole lot easier if I had a more defined satellite, which I will give that to you all in a second. Actually, let me hold that up to the side and we'll have that load as it continues to move on through. I'll actually duplicate. Yeah, so while that loads up on the side here, you can see satellite there, but there isn't really a lot of thunderstorms around. Not as organized as Tropical Storm Laura at the moment, but it is still relatively strong and does seem to be moving off in the general vicinity of the north. Let's take a look at the dry air. You can see that there is some bits and bobs of dry air to the north and west of that. but whether or not that will make a direct impact, you guys will probably see a bit later. I'm anticipating that it will, due to the fact that, well, I said you'd see it later, but you might as well see it now. Let's take a look at the shear. Here's the shear. And there is a lot of unfavorable shear out in front of Marco. And that is also kind of the reason as to why these bands aren't as organized. You can see how it's a bit more opaque, more fizzed out, compared to these other thunderstorms that have a bit more white in them, a bit more clouds condensed within each other. So it's not really all too organized on the northern portion due to the fact that you have 25, 30, 40, even 50 knot shear further up into the panhandle, the western panhandle of Florida. So a lot of shear out in front of this thing, and you can see how this shear is pointing in the general direction of the north and east. So the dry air could push off into that general direction. I do want to take a look at the directional shear right now to see if that is the case. And yeah, there is some areas to where it can be guided out towards the actual system. You can see that the directional shear, actually intensifies from 5, which is here. I'll get a different color so that you all will be able to see. You can see this right here is 5. This right here is 10. This is right here is 15 knots. So as this pushes off closer and closer, the directional shear will intensify more and more as it continues to move up, and will basically carry it out into that general direction. So that dry air that we were speaking about prior will actually be carried out by that directional shear. So something to keep in mind with that, as well as just the regular wind shear in general. But a lot of unfavorable wind shear for it to basically not be able to majorly intensify as of right now, as well as the dry air. But it could intensify as it continues to move on further, due to the fact that the sea surface temperatures are all above 31 degrees Celsius. That's 78 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even higher in some spots. So that's something to keep in mind there. Actually, what we can do real quickly is we can take a look at the current sea surface temperatures down and around those areas. We'll take a look at the Gulf for a bit, and then we'll take a look at around where Laura is eventually once we get over there. But here's the Gulf temperatures. You can see, according to the scale, the big reds are 31.8 degrees Celsius, so more or less 32 degrees Celsius, stuff like that. The yellows are more or less 31 degrees Celsius, and then 30 is green. Everything else below that is like blues, or like the dark blues, and the purples are 27 to 28. Granted, it's still pretty good when it comes to sea surface temperatures. Very, very warm. You would want above 27 degrees Celsius in order to at least sustain a tropical system. In this case, all these tropical systems have a lot of warm waters out in front of it, especially since, you know, you can take a look here. Marco is right about here. This is where the blue thing is. Actually, let's change it to black so that you all can see. Marco is about here, and it is forecasted to go in this general direction. You can see how it's going to go over 31 degrees Celsius waters, 30 degrees Celsius waters, and if it actually goes a bit further west, it can even go over to 31 degrees Celsius waters. So something to keep in mind there as it continues to move off into that general direction. It won't be moving off. It won't be veering off to the northeast all too much. It is trying to move off to the north and west. You know, if we look back at the directional shear here, you can see that, you know, the winds are trying to carry it a bit more to the north and west. So there is that, but there's also the directional shear that makes it want to curl a bit more to the north and east. So you might even potentially see something like that, to where this storm could even curl out a bit more and go straight into the U.S. rather than just curl out to Texas and stuff like that as it hits landfall. But as of right now, it does seem as if Louisiana is in the crosshairs of this storm. So as I mentioned before, you guys really need to monitor this as this continues to move on through. Flooding will definitely be a risk as this continues. Depending upon the intensity of the storm will determine the impacts of Tropical Storm Marco. So let's say it gets stronger. Let's say it gets significantly stronger to say Cat 2. We'll say Cat 2. You can expect storm surge in upwards of probably 6 to 9 feet in some spots, maybe. Depending upon where it impacts, though, because it would also help the storm as to where it impacts. You can kind of see how Louisiana juts out on the southeastern side. So south of New Orleans, you got that kind of peninsula out there. So depending upon, where it hits in Louisiana or maybe even further east than that, will determine as to the actual impact of this storm. But as of right now, definitely could be one of those things to where you guys could see a lot of activity. I personally think it could go hurricane. As a matter of fact, most people think it's going to go turn into a hurricane. When it comes to the intensity of the hurricane, the models have been pretty shaky with the strength of this storm as it moves off. So the models really aren't too good to use when it comes to the actual strength and trajectory of Marco in this instance. They've got Laura down for the most part. But as of right now, they do have it kind of just straight up dead. So I'll let this load up in a bit, and I'll bring this infrared satellite up for you all so that we can see what's happening with Marco. You can see here there is a general spit. Excuse me, I'm having hiccups all of a sudden. Let me take a sip of lemonade. Delicious. You guys know I love my lemonade. But you guys can definitely see there is some sort of spin here, lower level spin, within all of these thunderstorms. A lot of powerful thunderstorms off in the northeastern quadrant of this, as well as one in the southwestern quadrant. Nothing too much in the northwestern. There is some thunderstorm activity in the southeastern, but the northwestern is very noticeable to where there isn't really a lot of thunderstorm activity. And that will be mainly because of that wind shear and how it's pushing all the thunderstorms away. Typically, you would have these thunderstorms swirl into the center area of low pressure system. But in this case, due to the fact that the wind shear is kind of carrying it away, there isn't really a lot of activity in that northwestern quadrant. So definitely one of those things where it's apparent on satellite what all is happening here. But as it continues to move on through, you could see something very similar to this as it continues to move off to the north and east. Actually, not even the north and east, just due north for the most part. But yeah. So real quickly, I'm going to try and pull this up for us. Let's see, so this is the Western Atlantic, that's fine. So most of the models are very conflicted as to how this will move on through and progress. So we'll take a look at the GFS, and you guys can see this is according to tonight. This is the 18Z. So tonight, right about now, they're saying that Marco is right here. Laura is about right here. But according to the National Hurricane Center, it was 994. It's a 994 millibar storm. So, the GFS has already got that wrong. And as it continues to progress, we can take a look here, and you can see how it doesn't even get below 994. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even approach 994 when it comes to the pressure. So, a lot of these models are quite conflicted as to what exactly is happening here. I do want to take a look at the H-Wharf, because the H-Wharf does seem to have an idea as to what all is happening. Look at that. So 990 pressure right here already from the H-Wharf. As it progresses, it does look like it gets weaker, and as it heads off to the north. I said something about how it could go further east, east than Louisiana. The H-Wharf just said that it very well could, before it turns and dies. So that's a thing. But definitely one of those things to where round one for Louisiana with Marco won't be as bad as Laura, but you still will have one extra tropical system than you thought you would have 2 days ago. So definitely one of those things where you need to monitor that regardless. As this continues throughout time, of course, this will kind of just deteriorate and, you know, cause just gusty winds and possibly some rain. Not really gusty winds, but just some rain. Maybe some spin-ups around then. But definitely one of those things where people need to monitor that. In terms of intensity, if you guys want me to figure out the intensities, I was okay at intensities last year. I wasn't really trying all too hard, but then again, I don't really know all too much about tropical systems. I am still learning, though, and that's one thing. If I learn more and more and more, eventually I'll get better at this, and tracking them seems to be my forte, but the intensities seem to not be my forte. Doesn't seem to be anyone's forte, because let's be honest here, no one can track a damn hurricane. True facts. But we're all still striving to get better every single day. So, just by looking at the conditions that we had, stuff across the board, personally, I think that Marco could possibly strengthen maybe a little bit. Right now it's kind of fighting off a bit of that shear from the northern parts, to where that northwestern quadrant wasn't getting as much thunderstorms as the other quadrants, but still it could intensify maybe a little bit if you have some more convection across the board, so it'd be pretty interesting to say the least. Tyler Base, what's up? See, Tyler and I were talking about these tropical storms earlier, like 3 days ago. We were saying something about how this could potentially just miss the Yucatan Peninsula. If only we got the word out earlier. Nice to see you in the stream. Nice to see you in the stream. But personally, I think it could possibly intensify into a hurricane prior to it getting completely sheared out. With just that much shear, with 30 to 40 knot shear, it's kind of just hard for it to sustain when it comes to it getting gathering intensity. But still, you could see something. I'd say on landfall, you could probably expect... Oh god, where did my mouse go? I don't know where my mouse went. This is very weird. Oh, there you go. I found it. Finally. Sheesh. I say high-end tropical storm at landfall, mainly just because there's just so much shear, and there's bits and bobs of dry air that's flying into it. I don't think it'll be able to sustain all too well. So, tropical storm probably at landfall, but Marco, at maximum, probably just a 75 mile per hour storm. 991 millibars. Close enough. Something like that. There's a lot of warm waters around across the board, as you can see. It'll be heading into that, but, you know, there's only so much that moisture can do, and I don't think it'll do too much. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at the total precipitable water, and you can see there's a lot of moisture here. You can see that there is some. You can also see that there's this dry spikes. These little dry splotches. So, dry splotches, I should say. So, as this continues to move on through, you know, we'll see. But there's a lot of moisture for this thing to attempt to get stuff towards the center area of low pressure. As you can see, there's some stuff to the south of it, which could allow it to intensify a bit further. Just a bit, before it completely just fizzles out. Slowly but surely as it heads off to the coast. So, that's what I think. When it comes to Marco. But, what's the surprise? You guys will see it later. You know what? Screw it. I'll show it to you right now. Because I'm really excited about this. Honest to God. Really excited about this. I'm not sure if you guys are as excited about it as I am. But I'm really excited. I love this thing. Already. And I haven't even worn it for stuff yet. Behold, people! My custom apparel. It's not merch yet, unless there's enough people that actually want it. But look at how dope it looks. Look at it. This thing, honest to God, looks insane. Look at it. I mean, here, let me move my chair over to the side. Let me go full screen for you all. Look at this. This looks pretty cool. I'll be chasing stuff while wearing this, and wearing my safety glasses, because I don't want to get sandblasted anymore. My God, that sucks. I mean, getting sandblasted in the face is honestly stupid, but it happens. Gotta get my safety glasses from in here, because I, stored it. Yeah, this is what I'm wearing when I storm chase hurricanes. There we go. This is what I'm wearing. Got my logo, well, this is the North Face thing. Got my logo, got my YouTube name, got my last name. Eventually, if I get the okay from Penn State, I'll have the Penn State thing on the side. So, it'll say that I'm going to Penn State for meteorology, which will be pretty fun. But this thing, honestly, this is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, just the way they embroidered this, honestly, is just, it's pretty cool. So, I'm pretty happy with what they did. And if you guys want merch of this, the only thing that would be customizable would be the name at the bottom. You could make it whatever you want. You could make it your last name. You could say sucks. I don't care. I mean, you can do whatever you want with it. But this, you know, I just would need to have a bunch of people buying it. Stuff like that. But other than that, you know, I like it. I like it a lot. So, that was my surprise. Eventually, I already know there's going to be a tropical system that hits the Carolinas, or the coastal Carolinas eventually. So, whenever that happens, I'll be down there. I'll get hit by whatever tropical system. Hope to God it's a hurricane so that I can actually experience that. I don't want any impacts, you know, to where people die in Carolina, but, you know, it would be nice just to get hit by a hurricane just so I can experience, you know, what all happened over there. So, pretty cool stuff. I like it a lot, and I'm pretty sure you all will too. Not to mention I can wear this whenever. A lot of people were saying to get the word Storm Chaser embroidered on the back. I'm not sure what to think of it, to be completely honest with you. But, it does, I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. So, we'll see. The 40 people in the chat who live in Louisiana seems legit. So, yeah, that is my little surprise. I like it a lot. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And then whenever this stuff happens, it's where we'll actually get to chase. You'll see me in action with that. So, It's been a while since you've been online. Teaching online virtual school has been interesting. That's understandable, because I'll be dealing with that myself. Except I won't be teaching. I'll be at the other end. I'll be learning. But, yeah. So, there's Marco. We'll go over this one more time, just a brief where it's going to go. National Hurricane Center says it's going to go into around the New Orleans area. It could go further east. But around the coastal area south of New Orleans sounds about right when it comes to the track of where Marco could be. Impacts, we'll talk about the rainfall real quickly. It doesn't actually show you all how much rainfall you guys could get because this is day 1 through 3. You guys could possibly see a bit more yellows out here. Yeah, possibly a bit more yellows. Maybe right around here. Probably could see a bit more yellows here. And then there would be dark green around this. So, right about here. You could see a bit more dark green, like right here. So that's fine right there. But yeah, that's honestly what you can get. Now, when it comes to storm surge, personally, I think you guys could see 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. Nothing really all too bad, nothing too detrimental. You know, it will probably be something similar to Cristobal when it comes to storm surge. Maybe not be as bad. Maybe. It just honestly depends upon how the shear impacts the storm. But personally, I think it's kind of comparable to Cristobal when it comes to storm surge. So you guys could be fine in that regard. Maybe, I don't know. I'd say Cristobal is good enough. But that is Marco. Mind you all, there is still another tropical storm behind this, and this thing could hit after Marco within the next day or two. So that's interesting to keep in mind as well. Let's take a look at the track for this. Countless tropical storm warnings across the board. There's even a couple watches in Cuba and stuff like that. But Haiti, Dominican Republic, actually half of Cuba's already in the tropical storm warning. Duh. But Puerto Rico, they're about to get out of it. Actually, real quickly, I do want to check. The only time that this could actually be useful, GR2, is there is a radar station in Puerto Rico, so we can actually see what's going on there radar-wise. And I love how there's 2 severe thunderstorm warnings in Pennsylvania and 1 in Allegheny County in Philadelphia. So that's actually near, if I remember correctly, that's near Pittsburgh. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you live around Pittsburgh, you're in a severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. So there you go. So yeah, countless flash flood warnings across the board there. Jeez, Puerto Rico never gets a break when it comes to tropical systems hitting it, does it? Sheesh. But yeah, a lot of rain here. Probably not as much when it comes to gusty winds. It is still relatively weak right now, and it isn't really as organized as we typically see with tropical systems, but still it is kind of interesting as it continues to move on through. So that's interesting. But when it comes to the track, you can kind of see how it rides along the islands before heading out into the Gulf. Let's play hypotheticals real quick, because we love to talk about worst case scenarios so that people could actually know ahead of time what their options are. Alright, that's how I play it, and that's how, I love to play it. I don't want to fear monger, but gotta give it to him straight as to what could happen. That's the entire point of warning people. So, if we take a look at this, you can see that it's paralleling, it's literally on top of the islands. If it goes further north, than the cone expects. You could possibly see a hurricane by Tuesday morning. Possibly. And the reason being, because of that, is because there isn't really a lot of friction for the tropical system to deal with. Typically, you would want under the eye, not a lot of friction, so and around the eye wall, for there to be not a lot of friction and a lot of moisture, so that it could steadily rise up and continue to intensify as it continues to move on through. Whereas if it's over land, there's a lot of that friction, it's not as warm and moist, and it's kind of just bleh. It just falls apart. So if it goes further north than what this anticipates, it could probably intensify, and by Tuesday morning, Monday night maybe, you could see a hurricane. So let's hope that it doesn't go north and it stays on its trajectory. If it goes in the same trajectory, or if it goes further south, it probably will stay as a tropical storm until it gets into the Gulf. But regardless, the National Hurricane Center still says that it could turn into a hurricane by the time it gets into the Gulf. Now, this little dotted line for this cone of uncertainty means that it's 4 to 5 days out. So you have that much of a time frame when it comes to this storm actually hitting. If you guys remember before, I was saying how this thing could probably go and hit up Florida. Well, now, instead, it's kind of when it regenerates, it kind of has moved the center of low pressure further south and just has moved all over the place to the point where it's not going this way anymore. It's going this way now, or even this way, but it's not hitting Florida directly anymore. The Keys could still see something, but it's not being directly impacted. So in this case, it's went further south than expected and is anticipated to move into the Gulf. When it comes to it becoming a hurricane, and as to how strong it could be once it hits the general vicinity of, say, Texas, Louisiana, maybe the western panhandle of Florida to Alabama and Mississippi, it's kind of difficult to say for sure right now exactly what the intensity is going to be. Because, as I said, if it goes further north than this forecasted cone said, it's going to be stronger. It's going to be a lot stronger than this thing anticipates, and it could possibly be stronger than a Cat 1 or maybe even a Cat 2. I don't know exactly what the National Hurricane Center says specifically about the strength of Laura. Let's take a look real quick. This says that it will intensify to a 75 knot storm. So that would be 85 miles per hour. So still a Cat 1. But it could potentially be stronger, as I said, if it heads north. The only issue right now, regardless of whether it heads north of the cone or not, is what we talked about with Marco. If we remember what we said about Marco, hopefully I still have it up. No, I don't. So let's just go to Laura and let's zoom it out a bit. So here is the area around Laura. We'll actually get infrared up for us to see. Here's Laura. First off, I have to say this. Laura looks absolutely amazing right now. Best condition out of all the tropical systems I've seen so far this year in the Atlantic. Just looks perfect. A tropical system that people actually need to monitor very carefully. Because it could intensify. It very well could. But really well organized. We'll get into the organization later of, why it looks so good and, what we can anticipate further. But very good what it looks so far. What we were talking about before with Marco is there's a lot of wind shear out in front of this. Here is Marco. We'll put a giant M here for Marco. And look at this wind shear. All this red right here is very unfavorable wind shear, which could rip apart thunderstorms from the center area of low pressure and make it disorganized. So with that being said, if there is any way that this wind shear can stay here, it could potentially rip up some of the thunderstorms from this storm and potentially make it either stronger or weaker, but not as organized. So it's definitely still one of those things to where, depending upon if this stays here, then we can determine as to what all is going to happen. Personally, I kind of think that it'll be just cutting it a bit close. I think this wind shear could possibly move out within the next, say, 2 to 3 days, probably 3 days, and then by the time Laura is like over here, it's got a bunch of favorable wind shear on front of it. Maybe some neutral shear and stuff like that. Neutral shear is more likely due to the fact that this wind shear will kind of just be riding up along a trough. So it'll probably have a lot of neutral wind shear, which will basically make it to where it can either make or break the storm, and depending upon how good the storm looks when it gets over there will determine as to whether or not it will further intensify or even rapidly intensify. So that's something to keep in mind there. But as of right now, it does seem as if, regardless, the directional shear is still going to maintain its northeasterly component, which will make this tropical system turn as it moves into the Gulf. So, personally, I don't think anyone in Texas will be directly impacted by this storm, and I don't think anyone in the southern parts of Florida will be directly impacted. Probably indirectly impacted with some of the armed bands and maybe some of the flooding. But other than that, I don't think anyone from, say, Tampa and further south could get directly impacted. It's more or less the people from Tallahassee all the way over to Lake Charles. That's where I think you guys could probably expect the worst conditions from Laura. When it comes to intensities of Laura, here's the thing. As I mentioned before, it's very hard for me to determine how strong it would be. But regardless, I do think that a mid-range Category 1 is a bit on the low side, but it is very much so conservative from the National Hurricane Center. Mainly because, as I said before, we don't know as to the track of Laura. So we don't know as to how badly the islands will impact this tropical system. But personally, I think a high-end Cat 1 would be reasonable. All the way up to a mid to high-end Cat 2 could be very much so possible. But if that shear completely goes out, you could see a Cat 3 for sure. And that would be a major hurricane hitting Louisiana just 2 days after it got hit by a tropical storm, in my honest opinion. So, you know, it'll be one of those things where people need to continue to monitor this as it continues to progress, all right? It's not just this one and done thing to where you get one tropical system and then you recover. You can quickly recover, but you don't want to get careless. And another thing is, how are they going to deal with all the COVID cases? Especially with how down there, if I believe correctly, the South is kind of a hot spot right now for COVID. So I wonder how they're going to deal with that, especially as it continues to move on through, as it gets closer and closer and closer to the day of potential landfall. So, but the questions that I can answer for you all, will Marco and Laura make landfall? Yes. Will they make landfall at the same time? No, it'll probably be within 1 to 2 days, maybe even 3 days apart. So definitely something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through. But one of those things where you guys need to monitor this regardless. But yeah. We were talking about the wind shear before. Yeah, we were talking about wind shear before. We can talk about dry air real quickly. Notice how the dry air is kind of left in the dust. Pun intended. But the dry air is not going to directly impact this, but in any way, shape, or form. You can see these little bits and bobs of dry air out in front of it, but there's just not really anything too interesting. You can see how much moisture is around Laura right now. It just no way to where it's going to deteriorate as bad as Marco, because you can see how there isn't really as much moisture out in the near Houston and Lake Charles and stuff like that. So, you know, there is some moisture from Marco, but it is reasonable that Marco could be high-end tropical storms. Maybe a Category 1, but I think high-end tropical storm is more realistic when it comes to landfall. So, yeah, there's just not really all too much impacting Laura at the moment, besides just land. But we did say that we were going to take a look at the infrared satellite data of Laura, and we shall do that. It's still surprisingly loading. Surprisingly, but we can still kind of just figure out what all is happening with this within the first few frames. So look at that, chat. You can already see that there is a general swirl within this tropical system, and you can also see, look at that. Look at these thunderstorms that are blowing up on the southwestern quadrant, as I should say, and even the southeastern. But the southern half of the tropical system, a lot of thunderstorms blowing up. Could signify some sort of intensification, but you can take a look at this large swirl, this classic buzzsaw that I like to refer to it as. It's kind of scarier to refer to it as a buzzsaw, but it does, in hindsight, look like a buzzsaw due to the fact of the characteristic and how it just swirls and swirls. As I take a look, there is some thunderstorms forming on the northern side, but there is a little gap right here, and I'm kind of interested as to why there's a gap. But these thunderstorms could get carried off by some of the bands, and it could just regenerate itself. So that's something to keep in mind as it moves on through. But a lot of thunderstorms forming around Laura, and it could signify some sort of intensification as it continues to move on through. The center right now doesn't look to be over the land, but it could definitely head over the Dominican Republic into Haiti and stuff like that relatively soon, over Hispaniola. So something to keep in mind there. It does look like, just off of satellite imagery to where the center of low pressure is, it does seem as if it will maintain the track over the islands, unless if directional shear becomes a bit more influential. But as of right now, it does seem to be more over the islands than over water. So that's the good thing when it comes to it intensifying further. But regardless, you can expect some sort of flooding across the board there. There's already countless flash flood warnings in Puerto Rico. You can expect to see more flooding similar to that out in the rest of Hispaniola. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Kind of wish that this would load a bit further, but you know, unfortunately, this isn't really too nice to me. I may want to just refresh it, to be completely honest with you. Hope to God it actually loads. We can always try Weather Nerds too. Weather Nerds is also pretty nice. And twin twisties. Oh yeah. I mean, they're not really twins, but yes, they are very much so spinning at the same time. Okay, so not as good of a satellite not as good of a satellite, but it's close enough. You guys get the point. You can take a look, and you can see how these bands just continue to swirl in. So that's that says a lot. There's still that gap right there. I wonder if these thunderstorms will be able to counteract that. I mean, right now, I know it's being impacted by land and some mountains and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of interesting to say the least. Could you talk about the potential tornadic impacts? Yes, I can, because that is something that I do favor in, very much so. Very hard to say for sure the U.S. impacts when it comes to Laura. But I can say this much. Finally, we got this loop up and going. Sheesh. Um, with these bands, all right, you could see some little embedded rotations. But as of right now, I don't expect anything all too tornadic from Laura, even in Hispaniola, due to the fact that if we go back to the wind shear, God, I already lost it. Nice. Let's go over and let's go to the wind shear real quick. So here's wind shear, and you can see there isn't a lot of it around there. There isn't whatsoever. I mean, all this green is favorable wind shear for it to be able to thrive and continues to sustain. Typically, in order to have an enhanced level threat for tornadoes, you would need some sort of wind shear to kind of create some sort of spin in the atmosphere. And in this case, there isn't any mechanism to create this kind of convergence and create that spin. So right now, it doesn't seem all too tornadic, but you guys can still see something as it continues to move along. You know, if you get something to create its own updraft within the outer bands, definitely could. But as of right now, I don't anticipate anything too tornadic from Laura. However, Marco, on the other hand, I could see something potentially tornadic. I could even anticipate a 5% chance for tornadoes. I'm saying this 3 days out, but you know what? Screw it. 5% chance for tornadoes down and around near the Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama area, specifically because of the wind shear and it being at about 30 to 40 knots in those general vicinities. So you could definitely expect something tornadic. Actually, I'm going to try and zoom it in for you guys, just so you guys would be able to tell. So let's bring up the shear. This is the infrared satellite data that's being shown. The visible satellite, not really completely visible, but it's just infrared. A lot of the shear, as I mentioned before, very unfavorable. But the thing about it is when you typically get this unfavorable shear up against the bands, they can typically produce a lot of convergence, and especially since the low pressure system kind of carries a lot of storms counterclockwise, you can get it so that convergence could happen on the northwestern and the northeastern side and create these little embedded rotations along the lines of the outer bands of tropical systems. So in this case, I could potentially see something. I can outline it all for you. I'll get the... Yeah, so 2%. 2%. Something like that. And then I don't have a brown, so I'll just use orange. 5%. 5%. Because I said so. There we go. So that's basically that. Just Mobile, Biloxi, New Orleans, that typical area, you could definitely see some sort of tornadic potential from the storm. Could Arkansas see any severe weather from these storms? Not from Marco. Not from Marco, in my opinion. Marco would probably deteriorate quicker than most storms. So I don't think Marco will give you any severe weather, but Laura could definitely. Laura could definitely give you some sort of severe weather eventually. It just depends upon where it makes landfall. If it curls out a bit further more, then it could probably give you something. But it just honestly has to depend upon the placement of the landfall of Laura. So right now, a bit far out to tell you what your impacts could be, but Arkansas doesn't seem to, won't seem to get a lot of stuff from this. Marco could give you some thunderstorms, maybe a little bit of severe activity, but nothing too big. So, you gonna head down south, get content for storms, Nate? Nope. I got college. It's starting up on Monday for me. So, I'm trying to get that meteorological degree. True facts. If I can get that up, credibility. Boop! But yeah, for sure. Definitely want to get that. If Laura becomes a stronger storm, do you think it's going to curve east like most people think that most stronger storms do. Kind of. So what happens in this case is the reason why they kind of curl out is usually there's a trough that carries on through, typically a cold front. So you would have this cold front that develops, and because their warmer air is kind of channeled out in front of the cold front, if you think of it this way, the tropical system comes from the south, so it's already eating up all of this warm air, and it hasn't ate up all of that warm air, so it just rides up the cold front until all of it is gone. So yeah. It just depends upon if a front comes through, but honestly, I don't think it will curl all that much. I think Louisiana will probably get the main brute force of wherever Laura impacts from. I mean, let's put it this way. It's from St. Charles to Tallahassee, in my honest opinion, as to where Laura could make landfall. That's my honest opinion. What happened to the program you used in the past live streams with all the 3D layers? I still have it. It's right here. It's just the radar thing, but it's not... there's nothing going on right now, so I can't really do all too much. But we're looking at Laura. Laura's having a whale of a time right here. But you can definitely see all those thunderstorms start to blow up. Look at that. Look at that. Bunch of thunderstorms blowing up across the board over there. But yeah, this is more or less kind of a forecasting stream. I'm more or less surprised that I got that prediction correct. I'm going to be completely honest with you all. So, oh boy. But real quickly, I do want to take a look at the models for these storms. Because we all know that the models are kind of interesting when it comes to what all happens. With forecasts in tropical systems and stuff like that. Granted, the models have been absolute crap with both of these systems. We might as well still use them to give us a general idea of what we can see. So, let's take a look at the GFS first. The GFS has been the worst out of all of these. But still, have a general idea. So, as of right now, it says that it's going to be a 1,000 millibar storm, even though it's already at 994. Wait, did it update yet? Did they do their advisories already? Hold on. Let's see. Okay, Laura is intensified to a 50 mile per hour storm. That makes sense. 1,004 millibars. True facts. And there's Marco. Look at that. Marco's still 65 mile per hour storm with 994 millibars. So it's doing its own thing. Still also forecasted to become a hurricane as it gets closer to Louisiana. So that hasn't changed. Has the cone changed for Laura? Not really. Okay, so it's fine. We're still doing our own thing. But yeah, let's take a look at the models. As I said before, got a little sidetracked there, which is typical. You can see there is Marco, and Marco kind of just waltzes its way into the Gulf, and actually intensifies as it gets closer towards the central parts of the Gulf, but then as it gets closer to land, it kind of weakens a little bit, just a little bit. Let me take a look and see. Okay, so 10, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4. So it does seem to be a 1003, 1002 millibar storm on impact. So that would be tropical storm strength as it makes impacts down and around there south of New Orleans. But then there's Laura. And I mentioned before, I said that regardless of it going over land or not, I said Laura will intensify. And here it is. According to the GFS, 1,000 millibars going straight to 997. And then afterwards 992. So it does seem, according to the GFS, that it rapidly intensifies. And as we continue to look forward, look through and through, it gets to a 960 and a 959. So 959 millibars, for reference, is a range of mid-end Cat 3 to probably maybe a low-end Cat 4, give or take. But Cat 3 is about right. Mid-ends to maybe high-end. So GFS says that that thing will quickly intensify as it moves on through. I am assuming that the GFS is saying that the wind shear is gone by the time it gets there, which is what I said before when it comes to the intensities of Laura. God, now part of me is saying don't be surprised if you get a stronger hurricane than Cat 3. Why am I thinking this? I'm just basing it off the GFS. No. I'm not going to base it off of one model. We're going to take a look at some others. Because if I base something off of one model, not only am I going to hate myself for doing that, but people are going to yell at me. True facts. So let's just take a look at the Euro model. The Euro model has been a little bit below okay. It's, as I said, the models have been terrible, so what did you expect? Euro says that this thing intensifies rather quickly. It's 8, 6. Actually, let's go over to the wind. Is there a way for me to make it so that? Let's do Southeast US. Southeast US probably would be a whole lot easier to see. So here is Marco. 1003 millibar storm, moving its way on in. 997 storm, right there. Look at that. It's having a whale of a time. It also says that it goes up to around 55 knots. So that's around 65 miles per hour. I'm actually curious to see what happens now with all the recent data with the hurricane hunters, which we'll actually see what they've been doing and all that such too. But we'll see. So 997 could definitely be a bit lower on impact, but still one of those things where it does its own thing. Then here comes Laura. 993 storm. Has a lot more space to deal with when it comes to heading into the actual Gulf and moving around to intensify. The Euro, unfortunately, it takes 24 hours for a single scan, so it doesn't actually tell you what the big strength of the storm will be, but at 999 overland, sounds about right, tells me that this could be a 990 storm, maybe a bit lower than that according to the Euro. And we'll actually take a look at the ensembles for that as it continues to move on through, but still, definitely going to see as this continues to move on through. Yeah, let's take a look at some of the other models. And let's do NavGem. NavGem should be okay. Let's see. While that loads, 18Z GFS shows a very, very textbook environment for intensification. Euro forecasting is a bit more sheer for Laura. Laura cuts down the spine of both Hispaniola, Cuba. Don't see high end. Well, yes, that's one of those things to where if it just experiences a bunch of friction, just straight up doesn't intensify. But it does look pretty good right now. We'll say that much. Let's go NavGem. You can see there is Mr. Marco. Mr. Marco just does its own thing. A lot of these models are pretty convinced that it's going to hit south of New Orleans, so that's one thing. And then it actually curls right as soon as it gets there, so that's something interesting too. Laura, according to the NavGem, says it's going to make direct impact in Pensacola, so that's something interesting there too. I mentioned before that it could curl off and could be a bit further east than most of the models say, so that's something interesting to say the least as well. Do you want to use the icon real quick? Just real quickly. So here is Marco, as I've mentioned. Marco makes impacts at around Monday evening. Monday evening is when that will go around. So I will most likely live stream when this makes impacts. I probably won't be on it specifically. I'll have someone else on my channel talking about it, and then I'll drop in after 8 because I have my class from 6 to 8 on Mondays. That's the only time classes are late like that, but still, in the evening, does seem as if this tropical system does make impacts around there. Doesn't seem to be all too strong, but still something to continue to monitor. So there's that. And then there's Laura. Laura, according to the icon, Laura decides to say, "Hi, how are you? I'm going towards Houston and Lake Charles." Sounds about right. Sounds about right. HWRF nailed Marco pretty well. What do you mean? The HWRF most of the time said Marco was going to die. Said it wasn't going to do anything. HWRF says that Marco intensifies for a bit and then says, "I'm going away and I'm going to die peacefully." True facts. So, HWRF, when it comes to the placement, most of these models say in the evening, afternoon to evening hours is when this will make impacts. So that's something to keep in mind there. But yeah, if you want to watch me cover this live on Monday, definitely stay tuned to the channel. Hit the notifications for whenever that may happen. My class starts at 6, so what I'll probably do is, because I have 2 computers, I have one over there which does the streams, and one over here, which I will probably do my Zoom call from. I'll stream for a bit after my classes from noon all the way over, and then other people will cover for me from there. So that sounds about right. May you ask me something important? Sure. Depends upon the question. Yeah, very much so depends upon the question. Every time someone says storm, you're yelling. Yeah. Seems legit. Say max is 933. Is that for Laura or is that for Marco? If that's for Laura, yeah, I can see that. That's if it like rapidly intensifies to like Kingdom Come. But yes. I do want to actually take a look at the H-Word when it comes to Laura. What do you think about the SPC Day 4? We'll actually talk about that for a bit. Can you do the live stream for me? You're gonna have it then? Maybe. I have 2 people that are a part of my staff that does it, that live streams. They can just screen share that day. Stuff like that. Jeez, HWRF says 933 on impact. If that's the case, that's like worst case scenario. Oh, look at that. That thing is just mental. Buzzsaws along the coast like that. But yeah. HWRF sure wants this thing to go absolutely mental, doesn't it? Can you have moderator? You'll do good things and moderator different live streams. Please, moderator would be amazing. But I guess I saw the word moderator 3 times, and that's... No, there's nothing wrong with that. I'll think about it. I think I have a couple of my moderators lurking behind the scenes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's having a whale of a time, indeed. Excuse me. Any questions on these storms before we get into severe weather? That would be great. Anyone have any questions? Before we move on through worst case scenario for Marco, category 1, probably a mid-end category 1 at landfall to where it would hit, it would basically hit the same area as Cristobal. So that would be worst case scenario. Here, actually, I might as well just show you worst case scenario. This is the HWRF. This is basically the worst case scenario model. Personally, I think worst case scenario is that Marco hits right here, and you have a lot of storm surge that just surges into New Orleans, Lake Champlain, and Biloxi, and Mobile, and stuff like that. So that's honestly my worst case scenario. It would be an 85 mile per hour storm at max. Maybe, actually, you know what? I take that back. 90 at max. But personally, I think it's going to hit as a tropical storm, a high-end tropical storm. So, check out the simulated infrared. Of course. Why not? Why not? You're in the direct hit from Marco and Laura. You should definitely have some sort of plan of action. Yeah. And for the people who are from Louisiana in here watching the stream, you know, because I covered Cristobal and stuff like that. I told you guys 2 days out. I said the track is not accurate. I don't think it's hitting Texas. I think it's actually going to hit Louisiana. And here we are, a couple days later, and the models have shifted this direction, and the National Hurricane Center's cone has shifted. So, you know, they know that, well, they knew from the start that this was going to head into that general vicinity. And here it is. I'm not saying that I'm like the best at, you know, best at this ever. I'm just saying, you know, I've been kind of preaching this for a while, and if you want to hear my opinion, you probably, well, you guys should probably pay attention a little bit. Just a little bit. It's a bit of my confidence. I love having confidence in myself in this case. But anyways, where at, let's see, you live in Louisiana. That makes sense. Depending upon where you reside in Louisiana, I would just continue to monitor these things, because these things are way too unpredictable as of this moment. You know, if we take a look at Laura, look at how far out it is, and yet we're still, look at how far the cone is. So, you're a National Weather Service Co-op observer, you will be taking rainfall. Well then, you should be fine, sir. You should be fine. But yeah, that's pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. Are you a observer out of Lake Charles, New Orleans, or out of Lake Charles or New Orleans, or Lake Champlain? Lake Champlain, New Orleans is basically the same thing. Or not Champlain. Is it Champlain? Jeez, I don't know my geography. Not specifics. The H-Wharf run says Laura as a major Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane. Yeah, but the H-Wharf typically does the worst case scenario, mainly because it has rapid intensification kind of programmed into it. I will say this, H-Wharf has been the most accurate hurricane model as of this entire year. I will say that much. So, very cool to say the least. New Orleans, you live south of Baton Rouge. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, In my opinion, I think New Orleans will probably get, well, not New Orleans itself, but around that area could probably see the worst impacts from Marco. Even if this cone is legit, alright? Let's say that this cone is 100% right. Okay? Storm Surge is just going to be a thing from New Orleans all the way over to Mobile. It will continuously be a thing as it continues to just kind of surge everything through. And because of the wind shear there's going to be a nice tornado threat down over there as well. 5% chance of tornadoes, I'd say. So, definitely got their work cut out for them. Definitely have that. Okay, so it does seem as if the Hurricane Hunters are heading into both Laura and Marco at the same time. So let's take a look. God, a lot of contamination. Not really a lot for me to determine there besides 45 knot sustained winds. But sheesh. That's a lot of contamination saying over 55 knots. If we can go over that area again and figure out what's going on, that'd be great. But as of right now, does seem to be sustained 45 knots without contamination. Let's see. I do want to take a look real quickly. Oh. Did they find the center of low pressure? Or is that just a gap? Oh. I don't know what's going on here. That contamination, though. 55 knots at the surface. True facts. That sounds about right. I'm going to be completely honest. I do want to take a look at some of the drop songs they've made. So let's take a look at the first one. 34 knots at the surface. So that's pretty interesting. Pretty moist, relatively moist up. So it's not bad. Let's take a look at drop sond number 2. So 38 knots at the surface. About the same. Same thing. Not a lot of dry air with this. Not supposed to be a lot of dry air with this anyways. So I think this is more or less just to try and find how fast the winds are at the surface. So 19 knots. Big drop. Probably a third. Need the question answered? What are the impacts from northern Mississippi? Probably not all too large until Laura comes by. But nothing really too big. See a lot of lightning in North Pittsburgh. Isn't there a severe thunderstorm warning over there? There was. My bad. You're in the path of Marco. You're in South Texas. Not anymore. This thing's going to Louisiana. So you're in luck. You're in very much so a lot of luck. Drop number 4. 20 knots. It's okay. It's gotten just a little teeny better. Laura pulls a Michael, the Florida Panhandle is going to be screwed. Well, luckily for them, there's a lot of wind shear to prevent it from pulling a Michael. So, that is the good news. But the bad news is it still could probably intensify further. How many times Florida been lucky the past couple of years? I don't know how to classify the word lucky in this case. From getting worst case scenarios, probably a couple dozen. It would only be fitting for 2020 to have Laura become a Cat 4 or 5. Well, true. It would only be 2020 if we have another Dorian. True facts. We have the freaking smoke-a-cane that's hitting California. You guys remember Genevieve, right? There was Hurricane Genevieve, right? Yeah, it kind of swallowed up a bunch of the smoke and is now turned into a smoke-a-cane. So that's a thing. I don't know how it's a thing, but it's a thing. What is this? What is this year? Honestly, what has happened? I'm half tempted to just climb up on high, go to like the Himalayas, climb all the way to the top, and stare at the sky, asking God, saying, what the hell is wrong with this year? And what did you do? Did you flip a switch to make it so that anything and everything can happen? Like, what in the world is going on? 2021 better not be worse than this year. I swear, if it is, I'm going to cry. Better not have another pandemic. Please, love of God. Yeah, there's a thing. I didn't even know it was a thing, and it became a thing. You had a fire tornado, a relatively strong fire tornado, like a couple days before that. I don't know what's happening to this world anymore. I really don't. Anything and everything will happen. That's what I've heard. They took a drop zone at the center area of low pressure. 3 knots at the surface. I don't like the fact that how that's 1,008 millibars, so I don't think that's the center. I think they were trying to find it and they just decided to say, hey, let's drop something here. So I don't think this is the direct center of low pressure. At least I don't think so. Let me refresh the page real quick so that we can try and figure out. Doesn't look like this is updated yet, so that's a thing. But yeah, this hasn't updated when it comes to the live stuff. Is there any more flights? Nope, there isn't. They were doing upper level drop zones because they were trying to figure out what was it? Dry air, wind shear, stuff like that. Let's see. What were they trying to figure out? I think it's wind shear probably. Yeah, it's probably wind shear. So that makes sense. Although it is a little drier at the 250 to 300 millibars. So it is dealing with a little bit of bits and bobs, but a little drier. A little bit of dry air. From the California fires, smoke now going across the United States, also Canada, so watch out for some nice sunsets coming up soon. True. Snow-nado, that's happened before, and I won't be surprised if that happens again. Apparently Louisiana is going to get hit by 2 hurricanes within 2 days. Yes, it is. It really is. All sorts of stuff happening there. I mean, it's crazy. It's also a tornado near the Jersey Shore earlier this week on the day it was supposed to be mostly sunny. Yeah, I saw that too. It's an EF0, but it still, regardless, was crazy. Who thinks of this? Honestly, who thinks of this? Too much chaos. True facts. Any other questions about these tropical storms before we quickly go over to severe weather, because that's what we need to do. 4 days, my friends, that's when the Northeast gets hit by big stuff. Apparently. I haven't seen it myself, so I guess we're going to have some live reactions. But people have been telling me that there's going to be some things happening in the Northeast in 4 days. Matter of fact, isn't there a day 4 thing already set up? Yeah, look at that. Is that a meso discussion? Yes, it is. What's the meso discussion for? It's watching likely. Okay, never mind. Jeez, that's a large day 4. Look at that. It basically covers the entire Northeast. It covers me. I might be able to chase this. When is this? Tuesday? Day 4. Tuesday. Hey, we can chase this. Maybe. Possibly. We'll figure it out. We'll see. We'll see. If you ask me, out of all the hurricane-prone states, Georgia has been lucking out of direct landfalls from major hurricanes for years since Hurricane David. Yeah, you're not lying. It's kind of hard for hurricanes to make landfall in Georgia, to be fair. I mean, look. Savannah all the way up to south of Charleston. Look at how small that margin is. It's kind of hard for it to hit there. it happens. I'm honestly waiting for a tropical system to go up the Chesapeake Bay, because whenever that happens, all hell will break loose. True facts. Well, Nate, it's going to be a wind risk, so have fun. I mean, we'll see. I haven't seen it yet. How bad could a snornado... A snornado? Is that a tornado that snores? How bad could a snow tornado be? Not all that bad. The F6 be like, I'm the boss, get out of my way. That is the definition of 2020 right there. Okay. There we go. Make this a bit larger for everyone else so that they can see it. There we go. Live severe weather forecasting. We got that going for us. Okay, so here we are. Day 3. 15% chance of severe weather. That is a slight risk for any of you who cannot put together 2 and 2. No offense if you can't, but there it is. 15%. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that, but I did. But yeah, 15%, which is basically comparable to a slight risk, according to the Storm Prediction Center. Let's read what they have to say about this. Mid-range models are relatively consistent. In depicting a surface cold frontal advance across the northeast day 2, Tuesday, as upper-level troughing amplifies and moves across eastern Canada and the adjacent northeastern continental U.S., a strong, deep layer wind field accompanying the strengthening upper system and the least modest destabilization ahead of the front from the New England south to the central Appalachians and the mid-Atlantic suggests widespread storms associated severe risk, mainly in the form of damaging winds. So they even say it's a damaging wind threat, which, yeah, sounds about right. Day 5 depicts somewhat settled north trough, creating a broad ridge. So they're talking about day 5. Wait, what happens on day 5? Predictability too low. Interesting. Portions of the eastern U.S. Cold front forms of the Dakotas. Some retreat. Cold front. Yada yada yada. Thunderstorm development expected mainly during the evening within a region of ample deep layer shear. Isolated severe risk would appear to be possible, but will refrain from an aerial inclusion at this time, which makes sense. Because it's freaking 5 days out. Alright, well, let's get into what the models say about all of this. Let's take a look at the GFS. The GFS still is consistently one of the best wind shear maps out of all of models. So I will say this much. But yeah, here's the wind shear. We'll go over to the forecast loop and we'll take a look for ourselves. So we're looking for Tuesday. So here's Monday into Tuesday. So you can take a look at this trough. Actually, a part of me wants to like zoom out in a bit. Yeah, we'll do that in a bit. But look at this. A lot of wind shear. Look at that. A lot of wind shear, especially in southwestern parts of New York into central Pennsylvania. That'd be like near State College and stuff like that. So a lot of wind shear there. Definitely could see something right around here. Probably would be your worst. About the double hurricanes. Flooding possible where? Louisiana all the way to... we'll say Pensacola. That sounds about right. I'll get back to the tropical weather in like a second. I'm just doing the severe weather just to do stuff real quickly. But yeah, a lot of wind shear here. A lot of this is in upwards of 70 knots, which actually isn't... Jeez. That's not normal. That's not normal. That's not normal for August. I'll say that much. So, a lot of wind shear here. Let's take a look at the 850 millibar wind shear for right around that area. So, let's see. Tuesday does seem to be a bit of straight line. So, yeah, it does seem to be more or less a wind risk, which probably means I won't chase it. I'll probably just cover it. Something like that. But you can see how a lot of these wind barbs are facing the same direction. Here, I'll get a better pen and I'll zoom in for you all. So, as we take a look at the skew-T chart, you can see all these wind barbs are facing the same direction. They're going towards, they're facing down. So, blowing to the north and west, doing their own thing. So, blowing from the north and west to the south and east, I will say that. I should say that much. So, yeah, does seem to be more or less a wind risk. When it comes to the intensity of the winds, I mean, 42 knots is how fast these storms will be moving, and 20 knots is how fast the surface to 1 kilometer shear would be. So, you could definitely see something in upwards of 60 to 65 knots. Am I saying that? Really? 60 miles per hour to maybe 65 mile per hour winds. You can see gusts up to 70, maybe, something like that, but, yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that across the board. Lapse rates are okay. 7.4 at the surface is better than okay, but 6.4 to 6.3 is kind of meh, so it's doing its own thing. But definitely something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through. Cape numbers, 2,600 joules per kilogram, which is good enough for just storms to fire off in general. You would typically want 2,000 in order for something to be kind of tornadic. So 2,600 is good enough. It's fine. Downdraft Cape does seem to be on the weaker side, doesn't it? So you might not see as wide range of a wind risk. It may be like a 30% at best. It probably won't go moderate. Probably not. We'll say that much. It's very unlikely for it to go moderate. So, am I streaming that? Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see as it gets closer. Oh my god, I can't speak. As soon as it gets closer, we'll have to see. Mainly because of it just being 4 days out. So, as I said, as it progresses, we shall see. But, for right now, just looks like a big wind risk. So yeah, that is the basic gist of this. Are you guys kidding me? What are you doing, Laura? I mean, come on! It literally just said, hey buddy, we're gonna bring a lot of shear at 850 millibars. 63 knots of shear, definitely something that's gonna come by and just shred you guys to pieces. My god, look at... It goes to 70 in Ohio! This is on Friday evening, too. Theoretically, I could chase this. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. Jeez, my... I mean, what is this anymore? What am I looking at? What am I looking at? Honestly. I'm just... I still haven't shaved my entire beard. People have also told me that I shouldn't shave the beard. So that's the thing. But it is doing its own thing. We'll see. But I do want to see. It's probably just a surface low. I don't even know anymore. This thing has gone mental. I mean, As soon as Laura comes up, everything seems to want to just go crazy. Even after that, look at the trough. Jeez. Imagine if that was over land. Honestly, that probably would create so many tornadoes. I don't even know anymore. I'm going to go to the Supercell composite and see what the GFS says. Okay, so there's the Tuesday. Supercell composite does its own things. That's pretty nice. So that's it's expected. I don't like where this is going. If it can develop... That's south of me. I could theoretically chase that. It's also on a weekend. Actually, that's on a Friday evening. Yeah, I can still chase that, so that's pretty cool. My goodness. I haven't tuned into your streams in a few months, but I'm digging the new setup. Also, there are some interesting tracks we're looking at. Heard a possible collision, not too sure. If you're talking about tropical storms and the hurricanes, yeah, I've heard that too, but I don't believe they're going to be colliding all per se. So that's enough of the severe weather. We'll take a look at that as soon as it gets here. If that heads up to me, you can bet you a lot of money I'm going to chase that. True facts. That's only if it's as good as it seems. So we'll go back to the tropical weather because that is way more interesting. Live tropical storm. What is this? Laura and Marco. See, if only this was to speed up a whole lot quicker, wouldn't it? What'd you miss? You were at dinner. Nothing too much. We were talking about just some extra stuff about the tropics, and then we talked about the potential for the severe weather. Potential for severe weather in the Northeast on Tuesday. So, we'll fix that real quick. There we go. Hopefully, let's space that out. There we go. Alright, we got that. We shall make that smaller. And there we go. Not exactly the same, but close enough. Figure it out. Okay, so I do want to show you guys one thing. We didn't show this before, but the spaghetti models. We'll take a look at Marco first. So according to both the GFS and the Euro, this thing makes a turn prior to it heading to Louisiana, which personally, I don't think that will happen. I think it will hit Louisiana before it makes its turn. But I do think it will do, it will head off into that general vicinity and make its turn. The GFS also says that it probably will intensify greater than 50 knots, which, funny, you should say that. It's already at 65 miles per hour, which is 55 knots right now, so that's kind of BS in itself. The GFS does say that nothing really will happen out of this. Euro says that it will head up into Louisiana before curling out, so that's something to keep in mind. There is an ensemble that I do see in here. Let me zoom in to make sure that I'm not seeing things. Look at that. There is one that goes yellow and then orange prior to making landfall to Louisiana. And you can see that goes up to 60 knots and then goes higher. So if it gets to 65 knots, it actually hits Category 1 strength. So that's something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through. But there is one ensemble model from the Euro that says it could intensify. So that's something to keep in mind from there. Personally, as I said, when it makes landfall, I do anticipate it to be a high-end tropical storm. I also anticipate it to intensify to hurricane strength prior to that. I would say within the next day or so. But it will weaken, or at least I think it will weaken prior to it heading to making landfall. But I wouldn't be surprised if it hits as a Category 1 either. So that's something to keep in mind there. Tornado threat, as I said before, there will be some. And flooding threat. Somebody was asking before where I think the flooding threat will be. We'll get this in green. Definitely could be some flooding along the coast. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and get our own personal storm surge thingies on here. I haven't done this yet, but this is just based off of my opinion as to where I think it will make landfall and how much storm surge you can get. So, first things first, yellow is going to be 0 to 1 feet. All right, so that's yellow. Green is going to be 1 to 3. Orange is going to be 3 to 5. Actually, 3 to 6. We'll say 3 to 6. And then red is 6 to 9. And then we'll say pink is 9 plus for now. For now. We'll probably add another designation later, but we'll say that for now. Okay? So, when it comes to just general storm surge, 0 to 1 feet, you can definitely see it. You could probably see some light storm surge down and around near the Tampa and the St. Petersburg area, and as that falls all the way up to Tallahassee, maybe up to Mexico Beach. Then once it gets up to Mexico Beach, I think it'll get up to 1 to 3, all the way up in and around Mobile. Yeah, and then around Mobile, and then 3 to 6, you can expect to see that from Mobile all the way over to Biloxi, maybe down into New Orleans to Lake Champlain, stuff like that. All the way down to the peninsula, and then the mouth of the Mississippi. And then from the mouth of the Mississippi to say, over here. I don't know my geography all too well, but that will probably be like 1 to 3, and then 0 to 1 will be right after that. I think this is Lake Charles over here, so we'll say 0 to 1 over there just in case. But that's what I think the storm surge will probably be for Marco. When it comes to flooding in general, we'll outline that in, say, we'll say blue. Blue will be the flooding because it's water. True facts. Pontchartrain, not Champlain. Jesus, I'm crazy. This is why I don't know geography. Why did I forget Pontchartrain so easily? I'm such an idiot. Champlain is probably... Isn't Champlain up in frickin'... Lake Charles is over here. Well, then what the heck is this? That's where Barry hit. I can't remember. Jeez. This is... Pardon me for not knowing geography, because I absolutely suck at it. Or at least memorizing it. Here, let's go to Louisiana. Let's go to Louisiana. I don't know what's over there, so let's figure it out. Morgan City and Lafayette. That makes more sense, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Also, Louisiana has weird names. Well, I still kind of fault myself for not knowing it. Morgan City and Lafayette. Yeah, that's where Barry hit. Why did I not remember that? Jeez. This is why I don't have nice things. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Anyways, let's go back to the flooding, because why not? Let's see. Yeah, you could definitely see some flooding. I'd say from Pensacola, maybe a bit further east than Pensacola. Yeah, all the way up to, what was it, Hattiesburg? Hattiesburg. Yeah, Hattiesburg. All the way over to Lafayette, you could probably see something. From Catahoula. Try saying that. I tried. If I got it correctly, then boom. I'm having a whale of a time just pronouncing things that are difficult and forgetting things that are easy. I don't know anymore. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. But anyways, yeah, you can definitely see some flooding around here with Marco. This is with Marco, alright? This is my opinion. Yes, Hattiesburg. Yes, I finally get something correct. I don't know why. I think it was because of the EF4 that I covered. I think it was because of that. Jeez. Anyways. So yeah. Definitely could see a bunch of flooding just from the east of Pensacola all the way over to, say, Lafayette. Stuff like that. So that's what I personally think you could see when it comes to storm surge. Yeah. That's pretty much it when it comes to the spaghetti models. Let's take a look at the aircraft reconnaissance. I do want to see what they have in store for us. So, at the surface, does seem as if there is more sustained winds at around 35 knots, which would be 40 miles per hour, tropical storm strength. You got Biloxi too. You said it exactly right. Well, hey, finally getting some stuff. I do want to take a look at this drop sound, the sixth one. So that's at the center, not really the center actually. It's doing its own thing. Oh, they just had some drop zones at the center of Marco. I do want to take a look at the eye wall. So 45 knots at the surface, which would be 50 miles per hour. That's not too bad. Very moist, I have to say. Very moist in the eye wall. There's no way that thing's breaking apart. That's the northeastern quadrant, so that's probably the best out of all of them. But yeah, very interesting to say the least with these tropical systems. So, doesn't seem as if everything will be all too chaotic as of right now, but later you could see some intensification from these storms before Marco eventually kind of not really flatlines, but it kind of sustains at its current strength before deteriorating as it continues to move on through. Laura, on the other hand, as I said before, is kind of doing its own thing. Let's take a look at the ensemble models for Laura, because I am curious to see what they say. So the GFS is pretty adamant at this thing going up to 50 to 60 miles per 50 to 60 knots, which is around 60 to 70 miles per hour, which is pretty interesting. Try pronouncing. Oh God! All right. Let's try it. Tropitulus. That's my guess. That's my guess. Anyways, goes up to 50 to 60 knots, right there. Before hitting somewhere in between Pensacola and Lake Charles, as I said. Although there is one ensemble model that says it's going to go south of Houston, which I honestly don't think it'll be that much. We can see another November 17th, 2013. I mean, 2020, anything could happen, sure. But yeah, GFS says that it definitely will be a strong tropical storm on impact. Probably could be Tropitulas? What? Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot the S. I didn't see the S, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Oh well. It's okay. It's okay. It's close enough. It's close enough. Okay. Speaking of close enough, look at the Euro. Euro says that this thing intensifies to a, what is this, an 80-knot storm as it heads over into Texas? What is this? What is this? It goes to 100 knots. This is crazy. What is the Euro doing? I don't even know anymore. This thing has just gone mental. Either or. Even though it has a wide variety of where it could hit, it's still pretty adamant that something around 50 to 60 knots, maybe a little bit stronger, will hit the coast. So that'll be something to figure out as it continues to move along. But it's still very far away. Very long distance at the moment, so... You know, we'll see. We'll see. Oh, and then we've got the stupid UK Met over here. They're taking its grand old time. It says it's gonna not even hit the coast by 5 days, which is kind of funny. Yeah. It says something around 50, 60 knots hits too. So you could definitely see something at minimum of 50 knots. I think that's too generous. I say 60. Definitely could see something as a high-end Category 1 hitting the coast. So something like that. Actually, mid-end Category 1 is quite safe. But high-end is what I'm thinking. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as it continues to get closer. And I'll definitely stream more as we get closer. Who knows? I'll probably stream tomorrow evening. Probably will. Just to figure out what all will happen. And I'll definitely stream whenever these storms make landfall as well. So if you guys want to come out for that too. Even tell your friends and stuff like that. Even people who may be impacted. Tell them too. They might be interested. You know, we'll have to see. But as it continues to get closer, we'll know more and more about what we can expect. So, any questions? We've been live for an hour and 47 minutes. Jeez. And I know I typically live stream for like much longer, but like this was supposed to be like a forecasting stream and stuff like that. And typically they run like an hour. So I'm more or less surprised that this actually lasted for almost twice that. Tomorrow I'll get a little better look at day 4. Oh yeah. I'll be able to figure out if it's actually worth my time. So. If it doesn't hit day 3, you're done. It probably won't. It'll just go slight. And then it'll go enhanced as it gets closer. If it goes enhanced. But it probably won't go enhanced. And if it does, then I don't know anymore. I want to figure out what the SBC sees. I don't think I've self-promoted at all with this stream either. You know what? We don't self-promote here anymore. I'm waiting for news to release school closures. I need to make lesson plans. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see the reason as to why everything's kind of chaotic. It's kind of hard to make plans if you don't exactly know what's going to happen. Like less than I can give live updates. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'm always accepting all sorts of info. And I'll credit you guys and stuff like that. Even live feeds. Live feeds I always shout people out and stuff like that. So, we'll see. We'll see. Going to try and take some good video if it's worth doing. As long as you guys stay safe, that will be all I need, all you guys need. So yeah, any more questions before we end off? What time landfall for Marco? It does seem to be around the late afternoon to the evening on Monday. So that is around the time in which Marco will make landfall. When it comes to Lara, that's a whole different story. That'll be like Wednesday, maybe Thursday, something like that. But we'll figure it out, as I said, once we get closer. So, we'll see. I want to take a look at something quickly. Okay. Anyways, does this have anything to do with why the UK is so windy right now? Nope. That's mainly because you have a giant low pressure system over you guys. You guys will probably be a lot windier once these things pass by. Which should be around early part of, not this coming week, but the following week. Stuff like that. Don't think I can do live. You can try. We'll probably lose power at some point. Plan to go as long as it is safe-ish. I mean, even just clips and stuff like that. Not even live cams. It's just doing it. There appears to be a low within a low on Laura. Yeah, Laura is kind of trying to, redesignate its eye, its center of low pressure. It's just doing its own thing at this point. Because everything that we've wanted it to do, it's not doing. Or at least we thought it was going to do, it's not doing. But, you know, that's the nature of weather. We're not supposed to control it. Feels really weird doing so. You can only attempt to predict where this is going to be. And, I don't know. It's fun times with that. I gotta say, anything when it comes to predictions, I love doing. I don't know. It's just some sort of thrill whenever it happens. And it's not just the weather, too. I've had this for a while with video games, you know, to where it's always... You always have a plan in mind in the moment, where you're trying to figure out what stuff you need to do, or what stuff they are going to do, you know, what stuff will happen. And it's just always been one of those things where I've always enjoyed that stuff. If you're right on the predictions, it just feels so good. Yeah, it really does. You know, even with, you know, Pokemon. You guys may think Pokemon is stupid, but if you think of it and how I think of it, you have your own 6 Pokemon, and they have their own 6 Pokemon. You're trying to figure out how to feint their 6 Pokemon before they feint yours. And it's a whole strategy, because they have different Pokemon from you, and you have different Pokemon from them. And you're trying to figure out with the stuff that you have, how to beat the stuff that they have. And it's just figuring out what they are doing and what you need to do to beat them is always something that I've loved for quite some time. And that's the same thing for like first-person games as well. So. Anyways, doesn't seem as if there's any more questions, so I'm gonna take off. and go hang out with friends and stuff like that. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, share with people who may be interested, and hit the join button down below if you think you want to make a contribution, a monthly contribution of just $5. In turn, you do get exclusive content if I decide to do that, as well as emotes and badges for however long you've been a member for, stuff like that. So, other than that, guys, that's going to be it for me. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. I plan to stream tomorrow. And I'll give you guys updates and my opinions on what all will happen. So far, I've been pretty good with this analysis and interpreting what will happen. I got Marco pretty well so far. So let's see if that translates into the future. And if it does, then at least you guys know I'm getting better at this. Because tropics ain't really my forte, but I am getting better, and whenever I get better, usually it steeply increases. So, at least that's based off of my experience. So hopefully that happens, and hopefully we can continue to share our enthusiasm about the weather and stuff like that. So with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. So take care. Peace.